I welcome you all to today's daily study session on the topic role of diet and exercise, that is yoga, in PCOS. We have two speakers for today's session. Our first speaker is Dr. Deepa Srivastava. She has completed her PhDs from LBS Homeopathic Medical College, Bhopal. After her graduation, she had the opportunity to work for 1.5 years in a community service at a Gurudwara, where she explored variety of cases that greatly helped her in building clinical skills as clinician. For the past 1 year, she's been working at Sriti Homeopathic Clinic in Jhansi. She is passionate about helping others and maintaining a holistic view of patient care and healing them. We all heartfully invite you to this session, ma'am. And we are all very much
Thank you so much,
interested
ma'am.
in this session because it's a very important topic in the current scenario. You may continue with the session, ma'am. We are very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madhurima. So I think we can start now. Okay. So good evening, everyone, all the esteemed and experienced and honored doctors who are here. And so day before yesterday and yesterday also, Dr. Padmaja ma'am discussed about PCOD and all the things related to it, how we should diagnose it, how should we get into it deeply. So now we are going to discuss about the management of PCOD, which mainly includes the diet and regime, which mainly includes the lifestyle modulations that you should incur in your daily lifestyle, the modifications that are very important for the PCOD and a DUB patient, and not only for a PCOD and DUB patient, for every human being, we should always follow a healthy lifestyle. It's very important to live a very healthy and nice lifestyle. So now we'll start with it, I guess. So PCOD, everyone knows what PCOD is, but yet again, I'll just introduce it in a very, uh, I think, yeah, the slide is here. Dr. Rachna, can we come to the next slide? Am I audible to everyone now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Dr. Diksha, sorry to interrupt you, but there is still
Yes,
some
ma'am.
disturbance.
Okay, ma'am, I'll see to it and I'll go. Ma'am, is it now okay? Okay. So now we'll start our presentation. So the PCOD is the polycystic ovarian disease, or we can also call it, which is often interchangeably used term, is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it is a common endocrine disorder in all the reproductive aged women, and it is mainly characterized by chronic anovulation, hyperandrogenism, and polycystic ovarian morphology. So the etiology is simple. There is hyperinsulinemia, insulin resistance, LH secretion is increased, which disrupts the ovulation, and elevated androgens, which also contributes to sorry, I'm just not able to pronounce the word. Which is the growing of hair on the face, which is hirsutism and acne also. And the clinical features mainly includes oligomenorrhea or amenorrhea, in which there is no menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is absent for more than a month or 2 months or 3 months. It is not there. And sometimes the irregularity is so much that sometimes there is periods in 15 days or 20 days, it comes again. And then sometimes there is a condition where there is no menses for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and even more than that. And alopecia is also one clinical symptoms which comes under PCOD, and not many people talk about it. But sometimes hair thinning and alopecia also happens in the patient of PCOD. And there is this general symptom of obesity, which is there, which is a irregular or unhealthy weight gain which occurs in the patient of PCOD. And then infertility also occurs in the patient of PCOD due to anovulation, because there is no ovulation that is occurring, and the ovum is not uh, ovulation is not there, and there is no ovum, so that is why infertility occurs. Menses, in some cases there may be menses regular, matlab, there may be periods, there may be bleeding every month or every 2 months, but there is no ovulation with it, so infertility also occurs with it. So these are some common symptoms which are, or clinical symptoms features which are uh, associated with PCOD. Now the diagnosis of PCOD, we do it on the basis of Rotterdam criteria. Now the Rotterdam criteria is a criteria where we have 3 to 4 symptoms, clinical features which are associated with PCOD. But then even if one symptom is present and other 2 or 3 symptoms are not present, then also we can diagnose PCOD on the basis of that. So the symptoms which are there on the basis of which we diagnose PCOD are oligo, that is anovulation, where there is a less number of ovaries that are being ovulated per cycle. And then there is clinical or biochemical hyperandrogenism, and then there is polycystic ovaries on ultrasound. Now polycystic ovaries are not every time diagnosed in ultrasound. Not many times you can go under ultrasound and the doctor will say that he can see the polycystic ovaries in uterus. But then again, even if you are not having polycystic ovaries in the ultrasound, then also the condition is there, and maybe it's not developed yet, and still you can diagnose PCOD on the basis of that, on the basis of only when there is menstrual irregularities and there is no ovulation, and you are, even when you are getting other symptoms like hirsutism and acne and alopecia, and you are having weight gain, so other symptoms that are related with it, all on the basis of then them also you can diagnose the PCOD. Now, in PCOD, what occurs is there is hormonal imbalance, and this hormonal imbalance affects the menstrual cycles. It causes infertility and also the risk of other metabolic disorders and all the other conditions also, like diabetes and hypothyroidism. It is also linked with it because it is an endocrine disorder. So every other endocrine disorder, you are on the risk of getting it. You are on the risk of getting cardiovascular diseases also with it. So it's very important. Ma'am, can you please move the slide? Dr. Ashna? It's not. Maybe my network is not stable. Ma'am, it is visible, but maybe because of my network, I was not able to see it. Can we please come to DUB now? The introduction of DUB. So DUB is a dysfunctional uterine bleeding. So DUB is a term which comes under an umbrella of AUB. So AUB is abnormal uterine bleeding. Now abnormal uterine bleeding it includes everything under it. Every kind of abnormal bleeding which is occurring other than the menstrual bleeding, it comes under, it is classified under AUB, that is abnormal uterine bleeding, and it is characterized under the Figo-Palmcoin criteria. Now Figo is the criterion, Palmcoin is the mnemonic which is used to describe the classification of abnormal uterine bleeding. So there are now two kinds of abnormal uterine bleedings, that is structural and non-structural. Structural is when there is a pathology behind it, that is if you have a polyp, or if you have fibroadenomas, or there is some kind of malignancy that is occurring, tumors which are there in the uterus. If because of them the bleeding is occurring, then it comes under structural causes. And non-structural causes are mainly the functional disruptions which are happening, coagulopathy which is there, endometriosis which is happening, or endometrial disturbances that are happening. So it comes under it. So DUB is a part which comes under ovulatory dysfunction. It is a part of AUB that comes under ovulatory dysfunction. So the symptoms of DUB are mainly heavy excessive bleeding during your period also, and it can happen after the periods also and before the periods also. It is because it is not just the menstrual bleeding, it can happen anywhere between the periods also, or your periods can also last longer, more than 7 days or more than 10 days, then also it comes under DUB. And with bleeding, there is also severe abdominal pain. Sometimes the patient comes with severe abdominal pain, and sometimes there is no pain, but there is excessive weakness and tiredness which is related to it. So these are our PCOD and DUB. Now we are clear with it, I hope. And now we'll come to the evaluation and management of it. So management of PCOD and DUB comes under one diet planning, because PCOD and DUB are interconnected. PCOD leads to chronic anovulation, which is also a major cause of AUB, and DUB is a part of AUB, so they are interconnected. So anyone who is having PCOD, like DUB can also occur to the person who has no other symptoms of any kind of other condition, but then mainly the patients who have PCOD, they also have the problem of DUB. They also have DUB sometimes because of the irregularity in the ovulation. So now we'll come to the management part. That is the main topic of our webinar today, the importance of diet in PCOD and DUB. So our diet, our food, the food which we eat nowadays is something that is not at all pure. We are not eating a healthy diet. No one is living a healthy routine. We are sleeping on wrong time. We are waking up on wrong time. We are not having meals on proper timings. The meals are also that we are eating are not a properly nutritious balanced diet. So this is very important for us to have a balanced diet. Not only the patient, not only the person who is suffering from it, but also anyone, or even females are very prone to having PCOD or other menstrual disorders, so it is very important to have a balanced diet. But in PCOD and for DUB, it is very important to have a balanced diet which contains macronutrients also and micronutrients also. So macronutrients are the ones like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, healthy fats, proteins that you can get from plant, or proteins that you can get from lean meat. Not that the meat or the chicken that people are eating these days. We have to make sure that it is lean, and also from some kind of fish foods. Not every fish food or seafood is healthy in PCOD and DUB. And micronutrients are the ones like vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin B6, zinc, iron. These are the micronutrients which are very important in the patient of PCOD and DUB. So in this condition, what happens that already our insulin are disrupted. So a balanced diet is very important to improve our insulin sensitivity, which is very crucial. And then nutrient rich food is important, like we can eat vegetables, we can eat fruits, we can eat seeds of various kinds, which can provide us with the micronutrients. And then there are dry fruits, and there's walnut, and there are other kinds of fruits also which we can include in our diet for the intake of micronutrients. So in vegetables, we can include spinach, broccoli, carrot. In fruits, we can include apples and all the citrus fruits. Whole grains, we have to be very sure to include whole grains, because uh, generally carbohydrates increase the insulin spike in our body. So we have to make sure that we eat low glycemic index food which do not spike our glucose levels in the body. So whole grains like quinoa, oats, whole wheat, we can include it in our diet. Then proteins like lean meats, legumes, or paneer, or milk products, dairy products. Although dairy products are less advised in PCOD, but we can eat it in a very limited amount. We can consume it in a very limited amount, although milk is not advised, but the milk products we can consume it in very limited amount sometimes. And healthy fats, like we can get healthy fats from olive oil and nuts, and ghee is very crucial. We don't have to consume it in large amounts. A simple spoon of ghee is enough in a day for to consume to have healthy fat in our diet. Now, foods to avoid. These were the foods to include, because hormonal regulation is very important for the regulation of hormones in our body. So, fiber rich foods is very important. Foods which decrease the insulin sensitivity are very important. Foods which are low in glycemic index are very important. Now, foods that are we should avoid when we have PCOD and DUB are foods with high glycemic index, which increase our glucose spike to a certain level, which is not healthy. We have healthy levels for glucose spike, and if it crosses it, if the kind of food crosses it, then it is not healthy for us. So high glycemic index foods, for example, bread of any kind, but white bread is mostly asked to avoid. But in general, rich carbohydrate diet is not advised in PCOD and DUB. Sugar rich foods includes everything, anything which has sugar in it, or anything which increases the glucose levels in our body. We should avoid eating it. Direct sugar, though, anyways, we should avoid eating. But anything, even if it has a certain amount of sugar in it, we should try not to eat it too much. Now, refined items like pasta and bakery products like pastries and ice creams and packaged food which is there, we should avoid eating it in PCOD and DUB, because these days packaged food is so much in our house, in everyone's house. It has become a basic daily food for everyone. So packaged food should definitely be avoided. They should not be eaten, not even by PCOD and DUB person, but even for anyone. Processed food and packaged food should be avoided. Any kind of sugary food and drinks like juices which are available in the market, packaged drinks, colas, uh, and all the sweeteners which are available, we should always avoid it. The foods which have high coloring and high flavoring in them should also be avoided in PCOD and DUB. Now, the key components in PCOD and DUB which are there are fiber rich food should be taken. Fiber is very important. Fiber helps to regulate the blood glucose in our body. So the more fiber we inculcate in our food, it helps to maintain our glycemic index level. It helps our body to sustain glucose in a better way. So high fiber rich foods help stabilize blood sugar levels, which reduce insulin resistance and support weight management. Now, benefits of healthy fats, now fiber and healthy fats, these two things are, we should always pay more attention to these two things to incorporate it in our daily lifestyle, in our daily diet, because these two things, if we consume in the wrong way, they can also harm us, and if we consume it in a right way also, it can benefit us way too much. So healthy fats are very important. Healthy fats, we can get it from nuts. With nuts we can also get healthy fats, and also we'll get micronutrients from nuts. So nuts are very important, but we should always pay attention to the amount of nuts we are eating. And the sometimes what happens is, we advise a patient to eat nuts, and then they start eating it in high amount, heavy amount. They start eating it handful of nuts daily. So it's not advised like this. You should always consult your doctor and eat the nuts accordingly. So healthy fats are very important for maintaining the cardiovascular health, and they are also essential for maintaining PCOD and DUB symptoms. I've already discussed it, that we have to incorporate whole grains in our uh, diet, because they are high in fiber, and fiber is anyways important for us. Healthy fats also are very important, and they help in supporting of hormone regulation and cardiovascular health. Now, plant protein. Sometimes what happens is, we say that we get proteins from certain non-vegetarian items. So if you are the person who is a vegetarian and searching for plant protein options, then you can definitely go for plant proteins, because there are available plant proteins which we can have, and it's not always required for a person to consume it or get protein from a non-vegetarian diet. You can always have a balanced vegetarian diet and get enough amount of protein for from it, but you have to work hard for it. You have to uh, maintain, or you have to calculate the calories, and you have to calculate the protein per gram that you are getting in a day. But yes, you can have it from plant proteins, and plant proteins are rich in fiber also, and they help regulate your digestion also. So it is even more healthy for PCOD and DUB patients. Now, next slide, please, ma'am. So this is also discussed that high consumption of refined carbohydrates, we should not eat it because it is then increase insulin resistance in the body, and then it complicates the symptoms of PCOD and also increase our weight. Processed foods and packaged food and drinks and everything else also is not good for PCOD and DUB. And foods that can increase our high glycemic index can also harm us in PCOD and DUB symptoms. Next slide, ma'am. I have provided the kind of balance, sample balance diet chart. Although everyone's food preferences is different, and it uh, differentiates per person, but it is an example, and if everyone can see from it and then understand that how we can incorporate every kind of food in our daily meals for our breakfast, and then for our lunch, and then for our dinner. Okay. Now, diet, regime, and lifestyle in homeopathy. So, yes. Not only in general, diet modifications are important for anyone, but also our father of homeopathy, Dr. Henneman, also put much focus on it, and he put much weight on the diet and regime regulations when we are on the treatment also, when the patient is on treatment also, and after the treatment also, how the diet plays an important role in the lifestyle of a person. So there are certain foods and habits which are given that we should avoid, and we should ask our patients also to not eat such things while he or she is on her medication, because these things interacts with our treatment, it hampers it, and then the effects are nullified. So coffee, everyone knows that we should avoid drinking coffee while we are eating, while we are having our treatment, homeopathic treatments, because it's then hampers the effect of the medicine. Now, herbal teas. I want to discuss that important point, because these days many people started drinking herbal teas and incorporated it in their daily lifestyle. Because I do not advise it. Herbal teas have their own effects. Herbal teas, or other kinds of herbs or flowers which people started drinking as a tea, or they started adding it for flavor. We should always avoid drinking or eating such things, because then they have their own medicinal effect. So whether you are on homeopathic treatment or not, the herb is going to have its effect on the body. So, especially when you are on treatment, you should never consume such herbal teas or any kind of flower tea or any kind of leaf trees or any kind of dried leaves which are available in the market these days, because they are doing you more harm than good, because then they are having their own medicinal symptoms also. So, if you don't need those things, and even then also you are consuming it, it is going to harm your body. And even if you are on the treatment and you are consuming them, then also it is going to hamper the treatment, it is going to change the symptoms of the condition, and anyways it's not good. So we should always ask our patients if they are consuming any such things, and please ask them to avoid eating or drinking such herbs. Now, any kind of odorous waters like perfumes or anything, we should not use them. We can still use them, but anyways, it's advised not to use them while you are on medication. Raw onion, garlic, mint leaves, we can eat it in general, but especially when we are on homeopathic treatment, we should avoid eating it, especially before and after the medicinal intake. Now, crude vegetable for soups. Many people don't take it, and they take it very lightly to when they are eating any kind of crude vegetable, like, for example, onion and any kind of legumes, and then they are taking it in soups also, but Dr. Henneman clearly advised to not eat crude vegetables and any kind of mixed herbal soups when you are on medication, because then it is going to antidote the medicine, it is going to have its own medicinal effects, and the symptoms are going to get disrupted. Tobacco, smoking, these things are anyways not required, they are going to harm the body, and when you are specifically on treatment, it is going to harm you, it is going to nullify the effect of the medicine. Now, strong sauces, acidic fruits. In PCOD and DOB, we can consume acidic fruits, but there are certain kinds of conditions, there are certain kinds of diseases where acidic fruits and vitamin C rich foods are asked to avoid while you are on medication. But in PCOD and DOB, you can consume it. It is healthy. So then, now I have given some aphorism in which Dr. Henneman advised that how diet plays an important role in the healthy being of a human, and how it is important that while you are taking homeopathic treatment, why it is important to have a certain kind of diet, you have to eat certain kinds of food, and you have to have a certain kind of lifestyle modification while you are on homeopathic treatment. So aphorism 3 has it, in which it is written that obstacles to cure. Now, we are on medication, but there is no uh, effect that is coming, the desired effect is not coming. So, sometimes we get panic that why the medicine is not working, because now we don't know what patient is eating. Sometimes when the patient is eating a simple diet which is according to the patient is simple, but then it includes the things which hamper the treatment, so the medicinal effect is not up to the mark, and we think that the medicine is not working and the medicine is wrong. But actually what is happening is that because of these kinds of food and diets, the medicine is not working properly. So these are the obstacles to cure which are. So Dr. Rachna, can you please mute your mic? Can you please mute? The mic is open. So now obstacle to cure is giving in aphorism 3. Now aphorism 4, also Dr. Henneman advised that how diet is important. He said that healthy diet is and a clean environment and a sound lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle is important for the healthy being of any individual. Aphorism 5, in aphorism 5, in the sixth edition, it is mentioned about the habits and occupation and personal influences, how they are important in curing chronic diseases. In aphorism 260 also, now aphorism 260 have the direct diet and regime which Dr. Henneman included, that how diet and regime of the patient, especially in the chronic diseases, how they should be strictly regulated, that all the kind of food and drinks that a person consumes have their own medicinal action, have their own effect, and they are sometimes become obstacle in curing the patient, because then they'll have their own medicinal symptoms and sometimes they are going to antidote the medicine that we have given the patient. Aphorism 261 also states that mental and emotional state of a person is very important, because if you are not stress free, if you are not emotionally stable, if you are not happy, then the medicinal effect is going to be different. So because uh, healthy mental and emotional state comes under the healthy living lifestyle, so it is very important. Aphorism 262 also has it that harmful lifestyle or environment factors are essential. We have to remove the harmful lifestyle and environmental factors before beginning the treatment. Aphorism 263 also have it, like now in aphorism 263 some items are giving, the food items are stated that we should not eat while we are on the medication, like coffee, spices, alcohol. Aphorism 124, aphorism 124 is only in the fifth edition, it's giving that in states that poor lifestyle habits can obstruct the curative action of the best chosen remedies also. And aphorism 274, which is only given in the footnote of the sixth edition, it states that specific substances that interfere with remedies and must be avoided to ensure proper treatment. So, Dr. Henneman stated in all these aphorisms that how diet and regime and the foods that we take, the foods that we eat, that our daily lifestyle, the daily routine, how it is very important to maintain the healthy being, and how it is important that while we are on treatment, it is important. So, in every kind of disease and every kind of condition, food plays a very important role. We sometimes do not pay much attention to it, but anyways, it is very important because a patient comes with this mentality that we are eating the medication, so we can do anything because the medicine is going to work, and then what is the use of the medicine if we have to work this hard? But then we have to make them understand how diet, how the food that we eat are very important for the treatment. So according to me, when we are on treatment, when we are giving the treatment, that time also diet and regime is very important to manage the disease, and it is as important as the medicine that we are giving. So it is considered a very important part of the treatment. And even after the treatment also, if the person is cured, we stop the medication, then also it is very important to maintain the healthy state. And to maintain, for maintaining the healthy state, it is very important that we regulate our diet, and whatever we eat, we regulate our daily lifestyle. So this is it. Thank you so much, and if there are any queries, I'm happy to address them.
Yes, ma'am. There is a question in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am.
If there is a coexisting hypothyroidism, then what are the alternations in diet?
In the diet. So the diet for PCOD and then the diet for hypothyroidism, it is almost similar because they both are endocrine diseases. But then there are some foods which are not allowed in PCOD, but you can have them in hypothyroidism. And there are certain kinds of foods that you are consuming in PCOD which are good for PCOD, and but you do not consume those things in hypothyroidism, because then so those dietary modifications are done accordingly, according to the condition and the disease that the person is having.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am.
It was informative session, and the way you incorporated organon into it, it was really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Our next speaker of the today's session is Dr. Alka ma'am. She has done her BHMS from Mumbai and did PG diploma in diet and nutrition from UK. She is a yoga therapist specializing in prenatal, postnatal, and health disorders of women. She is a certified yoga teacher from Yoga Institute, Mumbai, with 500 hours of training in yoga, and Ayush certified yoga instructor and certified medical yoga therapist for female disorders from Gnosis Medical Yoga Therapy Institute, Pune. She is currently practicing at Swasthya Tattva Homeopathy and Diet Clinic, Pune. She conducts online wellness programs for prenatal and postnatal fitness, weight loss, PCOS reversal. And also, she is a member of advisory board and moderator of IWHB sessions. We are privileged to have you here, ma'am. We are eagerly waiting to learn from
Thank you so much, Dr. Madhurima, and good evening, everybody. Dr. Rachna, it will be nice if you could just start with the PPT. Yes. So today we are going to, and being one of the good students there, they had invited me to speak on this topic because I was working on weight loss cases, and I found that yoga is really very, very useful for treatment of PCOS and many other problems. Dr. Rachna, should we start? Yes. So I'm not going to read out the whole PPT. We can just scroll down. Just a minute, please. Yes. Next. 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 Yeah. So all these things have already been discussed. We'll go to the Dr. Darshana will go to the picture which has his yes. So let us talk about the clinical presentation of women with PCOS. Okay, somebody is not able to see the PPT. Is everyone else able to see it? There could be some internet issue. Please check that. So, as it has already been discussed, the clinical presentation of women with PCOS, you see basically symptoms of ovarian dysfunction like amenorrhea, oligomenorrhea, irregular uterine bleeding or infertility, symptoms of androgen excess, that is hirsutism, acne, alopecia or baldness, and symptoms of insulin resistance like acanthosis nigricans and obesity. So, what is the role of yoga or, for that matter, exercise in the treatment of PCOS? Now, we'll scroll down further and I will start first with the verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yes, Dr. Rashna, please scroll it down. Let's directly come to the verse in Bhagavad Gita. Yes. Yes. So, this is a very important shloka which says that Yukta Hara Viharasya Yukta Cheshtasya Karmasu Yukta Swapna Bodhasya Yogo Bhavati Dukkhaha, which means that he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So basically, when we work on different aspects of our lifestyle, that is what even Dr. Diksha mentioned. Yes, we can certainly work at the root cause and we can help patients with any sort of lifestyle disorder, whether it be PCOS or it be any other problem. Okay. So we scroll down further. Okay. The next one. Okay, we'll stop here. Now, when we have to talk about exercise in general, okay, it has been found scientifically that when we exercise, the blood flow to the muscles of the body, it improves. Mitochondrial proliferation occurs, and there is decreased insulin resistance. There are reduced chances of developing diabetes or any kind of cardiovascular diseases. So this is in general. Okay. Now, how do you apply this to? Okay, it has been seen scientifically that a modest weight loss of only 5 to 10% can restore menstrual periods in obese patients with PCOS. Okay, so if you get any patient who is obese, that is, you need to check whether they are actually obese. Okay, you need to check their weight, you need to check their BMI, and uh, if you feel that yes, they are on the heavier side or they're obese, you need to see to it that they take appropriate measures, that they reduce their weight by at least 5 to 10%. Okay. Now, how do you achieve this? Okay, there are various ways to achieve it, and yoga is one of the systems which can help patients do that. Now, I being a yoga therapist, I'm going to speak on that. There are different kinds of exercises, whether it be cardio, whether it be high intensity HIIT or high intensity exercises, or it could be strength training, which also does help patients achieve weight loss. Okay, now as far as my yogic approach to achieve the same thing, okay, as I teach it in my classes, okay, is as follows. Certain things which I have found useful for PCOS patients. Firstly, Sukshma Vyayam, Sthul Vyayam. Then there are certain postures which I use for weight loss. Then Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, that is meditative and relaxation techniques. Okay, we move on to the next slide. Okay, so what do you mean by Sthul Vyayam and Sukshma Vyayam? Now, Sthul Vyayam and Sukshma Vyayam are nothing but something like warming up exercises. Now, these are targeted to exercise each and every muscle and joint of the body. Okay, so whenever you get an obese patient, usually their bodies are not very flexible. So, you first need to work on their basic flexibility. So, the best thing to do is to start off with yoga to improve the flexibility, which leads to muscle development. And also, it is very, very good for people who are with sedentary occupations. Usually, I have seen that people with sedentary occupations are more prone to develop this disease. Okay, so we go on to the next. Now, in case of specific postures for weight loss, yes, I use these yogasanas also in a dynamic way, or I teach them in a dynamic manner. Okay, so the same effect which is created by doing cardio exercises, okay, can be also done by doing the asanas in a dynamic way. Okay, some of the asanas which I am using are Baddha Konasana, Naukasana, Bhujangasana, Pavan Muktasan, Hastapadam Mushtasan, Paschimottanasana, Vakrasan, okay, even Malasan. Okay, go on to the next slide. Yes, so what happens when you actually do all these exercises and asanas is that it gives abdominal compression. There is gentle massage on the internal organs, which improves their function. The digestive function improves, hormonal imbalances are corrected, and when it is done with breath awareness, it leads to a calm, rejuvenated mind. A combination of static asanas and the dynamic variants, it helps in steady weight loss. Because if you do the dynamic variations, it automatically leads to calorie burning also. And on the long range, I have seen that together, it really works wonders on patients. Next. Yes, different pranayams which I have found useful for PCOD are Anulom Vilom, Brahmari, Shitali, Shitkari, and Ujjayi. Now, what happens when you actually do these pranayams is that it helps to relieve stress and anxiety in patients. It helps to alleviate insomnia and also bring about hormonal balance. Okay. Can you just scroll it a little bit more? Yes. Now, another thing that I found useful is Om chanting. Yes, according to research, Om chanting leads to limbic deactivation. The brain has constant electrical activity, and Omkar creates waves which denote a calm and conscious state. So it improves breathing, it helps in concentration, and when you do prolonged Omkar recitation, it leads to prolonged exhalation, which influences the PNS, bringing about relaxation. So we go on to the next. Yes, certain relaxation techniques like Shavasana, Yog Nidra, Nispand Bhav, which is a technique which I've learned in Yoga Institute Santa Cruz. I found these very, very useful, especially helping the patient relieve them of anxiety, stress, and calm them down. Okay, so these are the main things which you need to focus on, because PCOS being a hormonal disturbance, you need to work on the patient not only in terms of exercise but also in terms of creating a balance in the hormones, and that has to be done with a combination of various means, whether it be asanas, whether it be diet, whether it be relaxation, whether it be meditative techniques. Yes, all these things, when done together, it creates a very great effect on the patient. And that is the reason why I have made it into a wellness program, sort of. When the patient joins me, I work on all these different aspects. So that is what um, I had to share. Of course, there's one more topic, that is DUB also, which has been discussed today. And even in DUB, it being a hormonal disturbance, yes, practice of yogasanas, especially those which are done in a very slow, gentle manner, it really helps to relieve stress and anxiety in patients. It helps to improve their sleep quality. And that is how, on the long range, all these disturbances can be settled and can help the patient along with the medical line of treatment. Okay, so that's my presentation for today. Are there any questions further?
Hello.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Alka. So,
Yes.
shall I ask?
Yes.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, Dr. Alka, you are very good and nice, and your presentation is very good now. So, I just wanted to know what are the dynamic variants and the static variants you have been explaining. The dynamic variants for PCOD. What could be the dynamic variant which you are explaining? So,
Okay.
that is one question. Yeah, please.
So, dynamic variance is when you do the same movement as you do it in a slow, gentle asana in a faster manner, okay, or at a faster pace. Okay, so the same hand and leg movements which you would be doing like an asana with breath awareness, do it slowly and gently, as you must be seeing yoga videos. Yeah, usually all the asanas are done with breath awareness and in a very slow manner. But when you do it dynamically, you are not doing them slowly, you're doing it at a faster pace. The same movement is repeated, but at a faster pace.
Okay.
So it
So, that
becomes
will be good results. So the second question is, so do you advise exercise to all the obese people, or till what weight exercise should be advised first? So to all the obese people, more than 100, more than 110, more than 120, they also are advised exercise, or is
So
there
it all
any
depends, ma'am,
calculation?
on what kind, the overall state of the patient. Okay. Now, if the patient is obese, but at the same time she has certain physical limitations, okay, then you need to select a particular group of asanas which would suit her. Okay, so that is what is the study of yoga therapy all about. Okay, so I get different kinds of patients. Some may be having certain limitations in terms of hand movements, leg movements, or doing particular kinds of asanas. Okay, so I need to select only those which will suit her and advise accordingly, frame a chart of asanas for her, some you can say customize it for her, and accordingly
So,
advise that.
so sometimes we say na, exercise induced obesity. So exercise causes the weight to gain sometimes. No? So how to uh, avoid that one?
I would say that if it is advised wrongly, then it would lead to problems. Okay, that is why it needs to be done under guidance. Okay, whatever
Yeah,
you
that's
do,
it.
yeah, you need to do it under a trained person. Okay, that
No, not
always
about
helps.
like that. No. These days we are doing, we are advising a set of exercises for a set of combinations of people. So generally, whatever complaint they have in general, not only PCOD, obesity, thyroid, all are they run hand in hand. So generally, we want them to lose their weight, and then generally losing weight also will help for them, right? So after a level of weight, that means after 110 or after 120 or even after 100, if she is having her regular activity, not that much sedentary, घर में काम करती है, not other activities, then if we directly advise her to do exercise, even without losing a 5 to 10 kgs also, then that will just prove her fatal. So that is not just advised for to do exercises. So exercises will increase the weight because it will just help their muscle muscle to get weakened. Muscle inflammation will be there, and she won't get back from that inflammation because she is already very low in her reaction level. So she can't get back from that reaction level. So first we need to advise her to keep on some diet. So no need to go for any walking. People are very crazy. They start walking, they start gymming, they start whatever they can do, they will do. But we need to advise after a certain more obesity. So we morbid obesity. We need to advise first to lose 5 to 10 kgs by exactly by taking protein or by whichever is less in their body like that. Then they need to pick up some energy. With that energy, need to do the exercise so that the muscle is not weeping. The muscles are not weeping or the muscles are not getting into inflammatory reaction. Then the exercise will show good results. Not all the people need exercise, madam. So exercise means movement. Movement is there for everybody. So that way I'm not saying that sedentary is. So first to take the exercise also or to take any acupuncture sitting also, they need to have certain vital reaction in them. So all the carbons in our Metro Medica, they just help first for that to getting that vital reaction back into them. So then they will be they can be advisor exercise because I followed all these techniques and I still do yoga every day morning. So in that particular, not in this one, or in a particular fashion after that. So I am 123. I have just been advised not to do my simple walking also, which I am doing before. Even though my knees are paining, I am doing before. So I have been advised not to do any walking. Just to focus on your diet and diet. So घर में थोड़ा बहुत काम कर रही हूँ, बस that is okay. So I'll go by Uber, I'll come by Uber, I'll sit in the clinic for hours together. So that is the cause of the obesity. Even then they did not advise any. And after I reached 110, then they advised me to go for a little walk of 10-15 minutes. That itself, and that also in the pace which I can do. And after I reached 100 kgs, then they have advised me of 15 to 20 minutes of more brisk walk. And after when I reached 90, then only they asked me to do all the yoga or the aerobics or the variant, something like that. Then I came to lose weight after the yoga, like that. So there should be some.
So this was a real good input in terms of your own personal experience. It's really
The
good.
exercise is not always suited to all patients, madam. We need to see what type of exercise. That also we need to tell what type of exercise you need to go. Exercise means what they think. Somebody they think they are crazy about walking. Somebody go to 1 2 hours for the gym and they stop after 1 month. So we need to suggest the patient also to do what the best for them. The diet also we need to suggest according to their habits. We need to suggest now. So we will say that no, don't take all the outside food, don't take all the high fiber, that means high carbs, low carbs. No patient will come to us next day. No patient will come to us next day if we say like that. So if we need to explain them, madam, you are still walking, right? Okay, 2-3 आसन हो जाएगा तो ठीक. No, madam, I can't do any yoga asan. No, my leg won't bend up. See, my thighs are like this much and this much. Then we need to just tell them, okay, don't do that. Then you just go through them, that's all. Like that. In the beginning, we need to pamper them with some or other. Even in the diet also, we need to advise them only the things which they can do. That's all. Only 1 or 2 or 3 things which they can do. And if they say that I can't control sugar in my coffee, then take jaggery in coffee or take honey in your coffee or switch to black coffee with honey. Something we need to advise as they can do that one. Like that, they will try to do first. They will take that first step. And after the first step has been taken, they generally go into their way. So every doctor should be very, very particular with the diet and exercise what is the diet and exercise to be advised to the patient. If we say stop smoking, stop coffee, stop alcohol, no patient will come to us. I tell you, no patient will come to us. So what I am telling, so पहले patients आते हैं, होम्योपैथी में ये खाना नहीं, वो खाना नहीं, कॉफी नहीं पीना है, कुछ भी नहीं पीना है ना मैडम. I tell them, no, don't take them when you are taking the medicine. That's all. Half an hour before the dose and half an hour after the dose. Avoid all the food. That's all I will tell. After that, if he takes coffee also, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. If he takes wine or alcohol also, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. But the treatment will definitely delay. Then we will explain them. If you are taking coffee like that, it will be definitely delayed. Or if you are taking wine like that, it definitely delayed. And some cases will be there where they will take Jarda pan. In that case, we need to advise straight at the first step. Either Jarda or homeopathy. दोनों नहीं चलेंगे साथ में साथ. Because Jarda कभी भी वो निकलने पर भी पूरे दिन का उसका smell रहता है. All the day the smell will be there in our mouth. Then the homeopathy will come. It is not like that homeopathy won't work at that time. It will work slowly. That's all. Homeopathy will work in any condition, any other condition. Whatever you give, the homeopathy will work. But it will work in a deviated manner or it may work little slowly. That's all. मैं पेशेंट्स को ऐसा बोलती हूँ, अगर आप जर्दा खाएंगे 1 साल में कम होने वाला, 4 साल लगेगी, मुझे आई एम विल बी बेनिफिटेड, आपको कुछ बेनिफिट नहीं होगी, ऐसा बोलती हूँ. देन नो मैडम 1 साल है ना, 1 साल बंद कर देंगे तो चलेगा ना. ओके 1 साल बंद कर लो. And after 1 year, he will definitely stop all this. Like that, we will be slowly asking them to, and whenever it comes to the addictions like alcohol or smoking, all or none phenomena should be followed. Don't advise them to take less. Even that they say, okay, madam, I used to take 4 to 5 pegs a day. Now I have come to 2 pegs a day. Don't allow them to do that. Because आज 2 पेग हो गया, कल 4 हो जाएगी, परसों 6 हो जाएगी. To this loss. So addictions में all or none. That's all. आते पूरे ले लो, नहीं तो पूरे छोड़ दो. बस बीच का कभी भी नहीं चलता है. This we need to advise even for the diet or even for the this one. Sometimes if a pulsatilla patient comes up, for example, so she is very fond of cakes, bakeries, and they are generally aggravating her. Then what we will tell? Either homeopathy or your bakery food, only एक ही चलता है. Right from the first day, we need to avoid her. Like that, exercise also, we need to see whether this patient is good for exercise or not. Then we need to advise her. So this is my experience. So I'm not contradicting you. You have done a very good job. And one more point I need to ask. So these days, people are people are going through protein diets or something. So taking protein diets and doing exercise. So does it increase their muscle, and increasing muscle is useful for losing weight or not?
Yes, including protein in the diet is important. Okay, for weight loss. Okay, but
Yes.
It is not to be done like a fad diet. Okay, so
Yes.
the diet needs to be balanced. Yes, and a proper amount of protein needs to be given along with the right proportion of carbs and other things that are the fats and micro minerals, that is the vitamins, minerals. Everything needs to be looked into. So it cannot
Yes.
be just like a one-sided approach, and giving them too much of protein is not the right thing to do. Other than sometimes it needs to be done for a temporary period. Okay, so if you
That's
do it
correct.
for
Yes.
a temporary period, for say maybe 2 weeks or so, you give them such a sort of
Yes.
diet. It helps that them to reduce on their weight, by few more kgs. But then
Yes.
finally, on a long term, we have to focus on balanced diet.
Yes. That's there. Finally, and the last for maintenance, we need to focus on balanced diet only. But before that, if we see that he is protein deprived, then we need to keep him on protein diet. And if we see that he is scared of fats and he is not taking even ghee, something like that, we can advise them to take on the whole what he is taking. Seeing that only we need to advise. If he advise ghee, take ghee, and along with his oil, if he is taking ghee, then it's not helpful, right? Definitely the calories will increase, the cholesterol also will increase. So like that, we need to However, we are individualizing the patients in homeopathy. We need to individualize the diet also. Then there will be no
Certainly.
discussions on whether the keto is good or whether the protein is good or whether the carb diet is good or balanced diet is good. The question won't arise at all. We need to see whether the keto diet at present is useful for the patient or not. Whether the protein diet at present is useful for the patient or not. If at all the protein diet is useful, for how many months she used to be on the protein diet. So we will be giving protein. We need to advise protein diet only till her body gets a sufficient protein. When after the sufficient protein is got by her body, after that, if she takes protein, she will be gaining weight. That will be going into the weight gaining mode. Then she will tell, after the first 3 months I have lost weight, then I am started gaining weight. So people generally think that मेरा पूरा weight जो वजन जो गया again it is coming back. No, it is not again coming back, but they need to have the other change in their diet. So they need to change the diet. If they are taking keto, we need to check that till which time it is sufficiently helping her. When it is not helping her, we need to switch over to another mode of diet. And in that diet only exercise regime also will come like that. This is what is my complete experience of all these years of weight loss. How would I lose the weight? And ultimately, after 51 years, I lost my weight. I started losing weight. कितना कुछ काम कर चुकी, and I have tried n number of diets and exercises and regime. Then homeopathy also. Never I lost weight. Even though I lose weight, it used to come back. And after 51, then I started losing weight. And I have written this much of book, this much of diary with me, whatever food is good, which food is good for which, and like that. So thank you, Alka. Thank you so much. And I have little questions for Dr. Diksha also, if she is there.
Yeah, ma'am. Before that, I'll just answer a question by Dr. Hemangi.
Yes, please.
She has asked about certain good affordable proteins which is easily cooked. Okay, now as far as I am concerned, when I treat PCOS patients, I usually prefer to give them plant-based proteins more. So in vegetarian diet, we have dals and sprouts, which are the main source of protein, along with paneer, tofu, and other things. But then consumption of these forms of protein are what is most ideal, and it should be easily digestible. So amongst all the different sprouts, moong is something which is most easily digestible. So that is what they should be preferring more, along with the combination of all the other varieties of dals that are available in the Indian market. Okay, I will hand over the same thing to Dr. Diksha, yeah, if she wants to add in certain more things in addition to what I have spoken. Yes, Dr. Diksha.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, as you said about exercise, so like Dr. Padmaja ma'am said that exercise is not for everyone, but then I have seen patients who have similar BMIs. Their weight according to the BMI is okay, but then they don't feel healthy in certain weight. Like if they gain 5 kgs, then they feel healthy, but according to their BMI, if the weight should be 55 kgs, they don't feel healthy. Their menstruation is not on time, and then if they gain certain pounds, then they feel healthy, and then the menstruation also is back to regular. Why this fluctuation happens, ma'am?
I really cannot, give a specific answer for this, because this is individual to every patient. Okay, so such cases are not common. These are cases which you see them. Few cases which you see in practice. So you cannot generalize, and just as Dr. Padmaja said that every case is different, so you need to customize whatever is required for the patient and accordingly advise. So that comes only with practice. So basically the aim is to restore hormonal balance. Yes, and a few kgs here and there, if the patient is above the normal limits, doesn't really matter so much, as far as all the other parameters, all the different other things are in place, if the menstrual function is going on well, and she's not having any other major health issues, I think there's nothing much to worry.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Alka ma'am, and thank you, Dr. Diksha ma'am.
Yeah,
So
that
we
too,
are
Dr. Madhurima, please wait. I'm still here. Okay.
yes.
Uh, okay. So, Dr. Diksha, so
Yes.
I wanted to ask you that I wanted to have a clarification. Yeah. As Dr. Alka has said that 5 to 10% of weight loss is sufficient to restore the period. That is a very valid point. We need to explain to people, and we are generally experiencing that in patients because even if they have lose 5 to 6 kgs in their body weight, also the menstruation will be restored back. And if they lose 10 kgs in their body weight, that means not kgs, it's 10%. 10% or 15% of their body weight, then the thyroid function will be restored. And if they lose 20% of their body weight, then the insulin functions will be restored. That means the diabetes functions will be restored. And if they lose 25% of their body weight, then the liver starts functioning into bad. That means the fatty liver grades will be decreased. This we need to advise them. This we need to, if we advise in these such as like, they will be very happy. No? They will be very happy. Okay, 5%, 5% is nothing, madam. I will do. And after reaching 5%, we can give like that. Like that. That is one thing. And coming about your presentation, it is very general, right? So for only PCOD and for only thyroid or for only insulin dependent. So I need to add little bit, one or two suggestions for them. So spinach, broccoli, which you have mentioned, they are good. No, they are not good. Okay, spinach not good for all of the people. So you should not advise general diet for each and every person, even though they are hypothyroid or PCOD. So if they are hypothyroid and PCOD patients, then just don't advise spinach because spinach is very high in calciums. So it will hinder the absorption levels, and it will hinder the thyrotropic hormone, that is what is T4, thyroxine sodium, to be secreted from the body or to function. That is, calcium is always opposite to TSH, right? Always opposite to thyroid. So that is why we advise not to take the calcium tablet within the vicinity of 4 to 6 hours of the thyroid tablet. Or that means सुबह 5:30 को thyroid tablet लिया तो 10:30 or 11:30 तक calcium tablet नहीं लेना और शाम को 5:30 तक लेना. Or if you have taken the calcium tablet after dinner by 10:30 or 11, don't take the thyroid tablet by 5:30 in the morning also. So like that, we need to maintain some 10 hours gap for the calcium and the thyroid. So that we need to explain. So, and generally for thyroid, we will be telling we need to avoid calcium, cabbage, cauliflower, then the capsicum and soya, and the other one is, these products we need to avoid because they are very much thyrotropic. So they are very thyrotropic. That's why we need to avoid. But what happens with broccoli is, broccoli contains a lot much of selenium in that one, and it is very very good for hypothyroid. But that hormone is good only the patient is a weaker constitution, like a acid phos constitution, like a carbon constitution, which is not at all ये दो तीन feet में चल नहीं सकती हूँ, I can't even manage. Or when there are but not in a China constitution, like where the discharges are heavy and that's why she became weak. No, it's not like that. That is why broccoli is not advised to all the patients of thyroid or PCOD. Okay, because broccoli consists of lot of selenium, and when the patients are very weak, then we need to advise them to take broccoli. That also in very steamed broccoli only we need to advise. All the leafy vegetables, all the cauliflower groups, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, everything they need to be steamed before you take. No kacha things, because all the raw things, they generally contain the worms which are directly going into the brain, and we have seen a lot of videos where the worms are done निकाल दिए थे after surgery. Even Leander Paes of our tennis star. So he had that salads more, cabbage salads, and he had that worms in our brain in his brain, and he is permanently away for the tennis. Like that is very, very dangerous for the leafy vegetables to eat raw. So we need to just poach them in the sense that we need to just steam them, and we can eat them. That is one thing. And broccoli also not to be advised to all of the patients, even thyroid or even as our PCOD patients. And the leaves like what is that? What is that we call gongora? We call in Telugu gongora. That is the what we call the sour one. The sour leaves will be there. No, we generally make dal. So that one contains lot of iron in it. So we can give for the PCOD patients, for the eyesight less eyesight patients, because they will generally getting iron more, and their cycles will be if that all they are having iron deficiency only, like that. And one more vegetable contains lot of progesterone is I think that is tomato contains lot of I think the phytoestrogens or progesterone. I don't remember actually. So this is like this. We need to separate the vegetables, and we need to see the patient's condition, and we need to advise them those vegetables only. More to take, not with all the other vegetables. Okay. So then the patient, we need to ask if they are already taking that vegetables. If they are already taking that vegetables more, even then the condition is like that, then we need to switch our other option, like the exercise, or like the water intake, or like their imperfect sleep. Sleep is one major issue to lose weight, and I think the imperfect sleep. Generally, people will neglect about the sleep. They say that 5 ghante is okay, 4 hours is okay, madam. I sleep very, very good, very sound sleep for 4 hours. I'll be fresh after 4 hours. Many working people will tell like that. That is not at all correct. We need to have 8 hours sleep a day, and preferably at least 7 hours sleep a day. Below 7 hours will just go to cardiac conditions. So we need to explain the sleep also to lose weight. To lose weight apart from diet and exercise. So that is one point. And one more point I wanted to ask. Uh, Something that's a very important point. I forgot. Okay, I'll keep it in the group. Anyway, thank you for both of you. You have done a very good job today, and we are really happy to see you giving the presentations. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much, ma'am.
lot, Alka ma'am and Dr. Deeksha. I just need to add one thing. There is this organization, International Policy Research Institute, and some other organizations along with that. They did a survey in India and they concluded that India in general is a protein deficient country. And they recommend high protein diets to all the people, including the urban and the rural population, and they said that urban people are more protein deficient than the rural people. So in general they recommend that you should take protein powders, etc., the artificial, or whether we have these natural sources like sattu, etc. They said कि सत्तू हमको लेना चाहिए क्योंकि वो high in protein है. So these types of recommendations they did, and they concluded that India in general is a protein deficient country. So my question is to Alka ma'am, that should we take these protein powders like these artificials which they come in packed items? Should we consume them or
I usually do not prescribe any protein powders to patients. Yes, other than if at all the patient is really, deficient, and you feel that there is muscle loss, then it's a different thing altogether. But then, in general, if you bank on our, daily meals, wherein we are balancing the amount of protein that we are taking. Yes, so having proper amount of dals and sprouts in the the lunch, the dinner, and even the breakfast should have something which is protein rich. So usual Indian diets, they usually are made more of carbs. If
yes,
you go to see,
yes,
if you see most of the Indians, they eat poha, upma, or they eat idli. Idli has urad dal, but then still it does have carbs also. So if you see that the breakfast is having too much of carbs in it, then you add on a source of protein in the breakfast. Okay. And even in the lunch and dinner, see to it that you are adding in a source of protein like dal or a katori of sprouts. That itself really helps the patients improve. That is my way of helping the patient.
Do you recommend eggs for your patient?
Yeah, yeah, I do recommend eggs.
Okay.
That you have to customize as per the the choice of the patient. Even non-veg for that matter, if they have been eating non-veg, uh, you cannot completely cut down on everything. Okay. It's only that you need to see to it that what form of meat or what form of non-veg they're eating, whether they're eating it in a very gravy sort of a preparation. Yeah, so you need to cut down on the fat part, so they need to eat lean meat. Okay, if they are eating that. At the same time, one thing needs to be remembered is that non-veg is a little difficult to digest. Okay, so working on all the different aspects, yes, if you go by the holistic way, yes, you need to see to it that whatever they are eating is also digested. Okay, so eating non-veg at night, sometimes that causes problems. So
Yes.
many a times you need to see to it that they are eating it at the right time. Uh, you need to adjust the non-veg part of it more during the lunch or the breakfast. Okay, so that by night everything gets digested well. You need to see what time they're eating it also. Okay, sometimes there are people who eat their dinners very late, say around 11:30. Okay, so in such cases also maybe the diet may be proper, but just because the timing is not right, again the digestion suffers. So you need to pay attention to small little points.
There is another point
Hello.
with non-veg I need to add,
Hmm.
that they are raising these chickens with a lot of antibiotics, injections, etc. So this is also harming people in general, because this is also a kind of hormone disruptor in humans. So we don't get pure meats today. So that is also another reason. So still, do you
Correct.
recommend
So
chicken?
that's what. So just as Dr. Padmaja said, you cannot actually change each and everything of what the patient is, habituated to.
Yes.
So you need to take them step by step. So you can make small changes, get them habituated to small little changes, and then if you want them to do make some major change, then accordingly you should take them on that path slowly.
Ma'am, but just not just non-veg food, but also adultery in food in general is happening, and uh, we should always make sure that we make the diet according to the disease in a way that it includes all the things which are less harmful. We cannot always take out every
Correct,
harmful thing that is in there, but you try to make it as much as less harmful it can be, and then
correct, correct.
Also,
implement.
diet is according to
Yes.
the regions. Now, India is such a vast country that not just north and south, in every 100 kilometers, the whole diet and the whole culture changes. So, this is also a key point.
And when people don't consume non-veg, whether it be meat or chicken or any other seafood, in a way that it is supposed to be consumed. They just in India they put lot of gravy, lot of spices, lot of oil, and they then cook it for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then they consume it. So I guess all the proteins and all the nutrients in it are already gone the time it's cooked.
Yes.
Yes. So one more point I want to add here is the depending upon the diet depending upon the patient, the powders also are needed if they are very much less in muscle protein and the carbon constitution. Those who have very much low vital reaction and they are morbid obese, how much if they eat also that won't get absorbed. The absorption difficulties will be there, like in silicia, like in carbons, and like in some plant remedies. So the absorption is not there. That is why, see, for many vegetarians will come to us with obesity. So what they say, madam, what we will eat, madam? We will eat dal na. That is only the protein we eat. If you say, if we can't take the dal also, what will be the protein for us? Like that they will ask. So if only eating dal also, why their protein is not sufficiently added because of the absorption problems. So first we need to give some food which is easily absorbed into their body, which doesn't cause pain for their absorption, like the protein powders. And that also we need to check in the market, which are not loaded with hormonal or steroids or corticosteroids, and which are containing the 9 amino acids in an order. Then we select that protein, and we need to give that protein in a calculated manner. Because if there is 100 kgs weight, 100 grams of protein should be taken in a day to lose weight. If 200 grams of protein is taken, they will gain weight. Like that, to gain weight, they need to take 200 grams of protein. To lose weight, they need to take 100 grams of protein. They are protein deficient. So for 100 grams of protein, what they can eat? What are the dals? Dals are not at all protein completely. That is the common वहम है दाल का या protein हो गया नहीं होगा. All the grains in matter of that all the pulses, they contain only 10% of protein in them. All the 90% is carbohydrate only. So 10% of protein. But because the other foods are also not having that 10%, we are considering dal as the proteinaceous protein supplements. So if you need protein at a very, she needs protein very badly, then we can suggest them protein powders also. There is no objection in it, but we need to check the labels and we need to advise them to take certain proteins like that. Like that is one. Till then, their absorption is improved until they reach a level that normal dietary protein is also sufficient for them. Like that. Like that, we need to check for individual patients. And even for some patients, keto is also good. For the kidney patients, keto is not good at all. For the patients who are working under sun every time, carbohydrates, we should not delete in their diet. We should not delete in their diet. That is why all of the Indians are working faculty from ancient days. So they used to work in the agricultural lands. That is why carbohydrates are predominant in all the Indian diet. Because we need to have that instant energy, and that energy is not stored. It is being disposed on the same day only. But we are taking carbs now, and our energy is not disposed. That is why we are becoming obese with carbs. That is why we are going to protein-rich diet. This protein-rich diet is something is the diet for the cold countries, not for the hot countries like tropical countries like India. But now we became like that. That we are our sedentary lifestyle, especially sedentary lifestyle, is going to protein-rich diet. Like that, India became protein deficient. That is one thing. And we have stopped taking milk with all other reasons, milk and dairy products. That is one main blow of the Indian protein, because India has sustained on milk only since ages together. Ages together, milk has been the main source of protein for all Indians, because we used to have that much of cows and buffaloes at our home. Then when we started decreasing all of it, then naturally artificial milk will be coming into the market. Artificial eggs will be coming into the market. Then everything will be reversed. Even poultry also. How many eggs are there naturally born eggs? So all other eggs are also, but what the recent study has says, all other eggs, that means the artificially injection given eggs also are good, but they increase the inflammatory reaction. That means the ESR will be little increased in those patients. That's all. There no other harm is happening with that eggs. We can take completely that eggs. But these days, China is introducing plastic eggs. So just to go through them, the internal soul of the egg will all be plastic only. So if we take the dietary plastic, we will generally enter into cancers. So that is one cross country, this one. So to decrease our population. So we need to be careful with those plastic eggs only. And I got that to see that plastic egg once. I have taken a small video on that also, but I don't have that now. Okay, then I have seen that plastic egg. What is that will be like that. So eggs are also good. Milk for the sake, we need to take from a trusted sources, that's all. But don't stop taking milk. If you are having a habit of taking milk, don't stop. But some patients are there who are advised not to take milk, but who are advised to take milk protein in another way, like paneer, like whey protein, like that. But don't take milk, don't take curd, because curd is carbohydrate completely, and milk is completely carbohydrate. So that is why they take that, they will extract the protein and they are selling in the market like that. Whey protein, whey protein, whey protein. कितने लोग whey protein में जीते हैं आजकल, and that is really working. If that is a pure whey protein, it's really helping Indian population. 70% of the Indian population is thriving on whey protein these days. like that. So sometimes the marketed products also are good, but we need to check them. That's what is my intention. Okay. Thank you. So like
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah. But
Yeah, yeah.
just a minute, please. Before we just end.
Is it safe to have tofu daily, like to decrease the weight?
Madam, I will
I
answer this question better. Tofu is not good. Sorry, Alka madam, I will answer this question
yes, yes,
better.
yes, yes, yes.
Because tofu is itself is not good, madam, to consume. Tofu itself is not good when compared to the other butter or other this dairy product, dairy paneer. You can prefer normal milk paneer, but tofu only to have that different taste or to have that satisfaction that we are taking plant protein. That's all. Tofu does not aid in not that it does not aid in weight loss. It will aid, but it is not that much healthy to take tofu. So don't take the tofu based because soya is not good in thyroid cases. It's not good in PCOD. In all other hormonal regulations, soy is not good. Okay. So don't prefer tofu for your patients. That will be better.
Okay, can we give for like men like to decrease their weight? It's not recommend.
Actually, tofu is not that much. It is in the second place with paneer, madam. Tofu is
Okay.
always in the second place or third place, like that. So whenever you are
Okay.
not getting the other option, you may prefer. And generally, tofu is not that much healthy to take.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you like to answer, Alka ma'am?
Yeah, I do agree, and I always feel that a person should have different sources of protein. Okay, not stick to just one. Okay, provided that he or she is digesting whatever she's having, he or she is having. Okay, so digestion is a very important part, and they need to work on that too, along with because protein is not easy to digest. So, whenever you include protein in the diet, see to it that it is adjusted at a particular time wherein it gets digested, and the patient doesn't suffer from any other problem. Okay, that is what it is. So having tofu once in a while is okay. I agree to Dr. Padmaja that it should not be had on a daily basis. Okay, because we have other sources too. So why not have them?
Okay. Do we have any more questions? Dr. Madhurima, you can check in the chat box and then you can conclude.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, meanwhile,
That
I want to add something. Ma'am, just like Dr. Padmaja said about protein, that and you also said that India is a protein deficit country. But then, when we talk about PCOD and thyroid and diabetes, in such cases, when we ask the person when the person gets obese, and we ask the patient to lose weight, then sometimes they stop eating and then they start losing weight, and then they also are doing exercises, though they are losing more muscle mass than the fat person. So how can we manage it?
They will have weakness, I think. If they are not taking protein enough, they will have weakness. That is why they did this survey and then they concluded that India is protein deficient, because from exercises we usually lose fat first. We don't lose proteins are the last things to lose. So, and if you are losing proteins, you will have weakness, lot of weakness. So that is why exercise and protein intake is recommended together. They go hand in hand. I think Alka ma'am will answer this better.
And I'm
I think
also fat
it's
percent
very logical.
because for the regulation of normal menstrual cycle, 22% fat is needed, matlab around 20 to 25. So how can we pay attention to that percent? Okay, okay, fine, this much fat should be retained in the body while we are on diet and on exercise.
See, basically, you need to see to it that they're having a daily dose of good fat. Okay, so having good quality fats is not only having ghee or oil. Okay, even the sources of omega 3, omega 6 need to be looked into. Okay, so when you see to it that they are having even those sources, yes, automatically the health improves. So I have seen that those ladies, especially with PCOS and other conditions, there is a concept called seed cycling. Okay, you can maybe read about it on the net. And it in seed cycling you have to alternate the intake of sunflower seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, and sesame seeds. Okay, now they are given in a particular proportion and in a particular time, that is during the luteal phase and the follicular phase. Okay, so that proportion needs to be advised and it needs to be taken in that form. Okay, so automatically the balance is created. Okay, I have been doing that with some of my PCOS patients and I have got good results.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, to add this to this, Dr. Deeksha, methi seeds are good to have estrogen levels more, and sunflower flax seeds are also good to have estrogen and progesterone levels more to keep the balance. So whenever we are seeing if the patient PCOS is having estrogen and progesterone disturbance, we'll advise them to take flax seeds. And better, we need to advise all the 5 seeds which is going in the market today to have that omega 3, omega 6, and all the 9 omega fatty acids, all the 9 amino acids. So for the 5 seeds, the sesame, the flax, the sunflower, watermelon, and the pumpkin seeds, all to be taken in certain amount depending upon their weight. That would depend. That would take care of the hormonal fat which is needed to get the hormones back, like that. And if they are really deficient in iron, one thing is that halim seeds is there. Halim seeds is one seed which is in the beetroot color of beetroot. It is such a seeds that if you take for 1 week also, the iron will be improving. The iron will be improving. No other iron supplement, homeopathic or allopathic, will act in that way, like that. The iron will improve. So iron deficiency, anemias causing PCODs, we need to causing DUBs, we need to suggest them to take halim seeds only in the 15 minutes, 15 days after the cycle. So before the cycle, 15 days, he should not take anything.
Madam,
Iron
I did not get what seeds, madam. Sorry.
Halim
Madam, what
Halim.
seeds?
Halim seeds, HALIM, Halim seeds. You can see in
Halim
the
seeds.
net. You can see in the net, they will be red in color. So you can take 1 teaspoon is sufficient. And by the way matter, if they are supposed to have delayed periods, these flowers, hibiscus flowers, they contain a lot of estrogen in them. Hibiscus petals, the 4 petal hibiscus will be there, na 4 to 5 petal hibiscus. That is very, very loaded with estrogen levels. So if the periods are delayed, so I have 2 patients who are physiotherapists themselves. They are having delayed menses. So whenever they want the period to come, 1 day before they'll eat all the hibiscus petals with honey or something. The next day they will getting their period. So they are doing this for 1 year or 2 years like this. So like that. So that means it contains a lot of estrogen in that. That also we need to have improve our knowledge and we need to advise them. If somebody says like that, we should not cut them. We should not we should not oppose them. We need to note all those things. Whoever are sufficient, whoever it is good, for whoever it is good, we can advise them like that. Okay,
Ma'am, what about fennel seeds for menstrual irregularity? I've heard that they work good in that.
actually, fennel seeds works on the abdominal fat. Abdominal fat generally goes inside with the fennel seeds. So if they are different, if they are very fatty women, the fat is obstructing the uterus to enlarge or uterus to function better. So for functioning, it needs some place. Na? Whenever before PMS, the uterus is slightly inflamed, slightly enlarges. If the abdominal fat is obstructing that one, then we can give them fennel seeds. Fennel seeds will daily drinking fennel seeds liquid. Fennel, methi, ajwain, and one more seed. These four we will be taking as decoction every day morning. The part of antioxidant, that is what I forgot. All the PCOD cases, all the thyroid cases should necessarily be given one antioxidant to be taken in the morning. Antioxidants will work just like an exercise will work on the body. So to just clean all the body, antioxidants will show their result within 1 month only. But we need to suggest one correct antioxidant for their body. That could be lime and honey, that could be lukewarm water, that could be green tea with honey, or that could be with insulin dependent. This one means we can give jamun powder to be taken in hot water in the morning, jamun seeds powder. Or if they are only having weakness and like the wheatgrass powder in the morning, or if they are little iodine deficient, spirulina herb in the morning to take, spirulina herb in the water, like that. We need to see the condition, we need to advise, but one antioxidant should be there, definitely incorporated in their diet and lifestyle. That would do much better. Okay.
Okay, thank
Ma'am,
you.
there's another question in the chat box. Diet specific for DUB, especially if bleeding is prolonged for 10 to 15 days.
So, shall I answer or Diksha will be answering?
You can continue and then I can add if anything I want.
Yes. So, for continuous prolonged bleeding, you should cut all the iron supplements in your diet. All the iron supplement. The iron should not be taken during periods. Please note this one. Whenever the lady is bleeding, no iron supplement in the food or from the outside. After she completes her bleeding, after 2 days or 3 days, when she is completely knows that she is not menstruating now, then we need to load the body with iron supplements like that. That means beetroots, papaya, the pomegranate seeds, the halin seeds, the leafy vegetables, all are rich in iron. The black grapes, all are rich in iron, which we generally give for iron supplement. So people generally, for prolonged bleeding, ज़्यादा bleeding चली जा रही है, so I will take more iron. So they'll generally take, they start taking the black grape juice, they start taking pomegranate juice, or the kesar wali doodh, something like that they start taking. And then that just end will, again, menorrhagia. Because it will just induce the estrogen to go and go and go, and the bleeding will never stop. So just to ask them to stop all the iron supplements in their food during menstruation. However, 15 days, if they are menstruating, 15 days they need to stop. After that, they can load the body with again iron supplements. That will take care for the next cycle. So that is my understanding.
Ma'am, what about having ferrum phos during periods or after
No,
periods?
ferrum phos is ferrum phos generally
Or
induces periods, especially in menarche people and just after menarche. If you give ferrum phos or any ferrum met or any ferrum component, the next day they will show bleeding. The spotting will be there. The spotting will be there. It will be very, very difficult. If the ferrum phos is indicated to those patients, we should not give ferrum combinations at all around menarche people or just after 2 to 3 years after menarche. They will cause irregular periods, that's all. Someday spotting is there, someday early period is there, someday heavy period will be there, like that. We need to avoid all the ferrum combination because it is loaded with iron, that's why. Yes, Dr. Ranjan, do you have any question?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to ask that what about China officinalis at that time when heavy menorrhagia is there?
Yeah, if China is indicated, we can give. That is
Okay.
our indicated remedy. We are speaking about our this one. So China will not always be indicated, even though it is a prolonged bleeding. So China will be indicated as we have yesterday explained. China will be indicated only if there is complete prostration with the discharges. The discharges should be
Okay.
heavy. Even though the discharges are not heavy, she need to be in prostration. Yeah, no,
Okay.
she need to be in weakness. So in generally, China has heavy menstruations for a prolonged period. That means all the discharges are gone. So that is why she becomes weak. Then we can give China. If
Okay,
that
ma'am.
is only 2 to 2 days period only, and the discharges are not heavy also, still the lady is going into extreme prostration, then we need to think of camphor. Then we need to think of camphor. Okay.
Okay.
So it is not China anymore. Like that. Like that, we need to differentiate in our
Okay. Okay.
drug. Okay.
Hmm.
Yes, Dr. Manisha. Dr. Manisha, do you have any question?
Yeah. I have to ask a question to Alka ma'am or the dietitian part. Like in a hypothyroidism patient, if soya is not allowed, so what about soya granules or soybean seeds? Can we give a patient in the diet plan? Like I can add, you take this made from soya seeds, a flour made from soya seeds.
But finally, it is soya, so it's better to avoid. That is my suggestion.
So not in once a week also.
It all depends on how the condition of the patient is, you know. So you need to check the thyroid levels. You need to see how bad the state is. So
Acha.
accordingly, you
Okay.
need to advise.
So, Dr. Manisha, shall I add something in this one? Sorry, Dr. Alka, I'm
Yes,
interrupting you.
ma'am. Yeah.
Soya granules, when they are not good for thyroid, but when they are boiled till more than 100 degrees, more than 100
Yeah.
degrees, and they are cooked, then that is not harmful for the thyroid. That is what is the main point in soya. So the
Yeah,
flour
exactly.
cannot be
Soya
prepared by
granules.
water. No, the flour
Soya
cannot be
granules, na
prepared.
ma'am?
Yes, the granules, they cannot be boiled to prepare the flour, no? So the flour is not
Yeah.
prepared from the boiled granules. How can it be prepared from the boiled granules? So the
Yeah, but
flour
there
is
are
not at all
other
harmful.
methods.
Other
Acha.
methods, when the granules are being boiled to 100 more than 100 degrees, and then we can use that granules for our for our wet flour, or to use any soya nuts or nuggets, or any soya vada, soya idli, something like that. We
Yeah.
can make from that, and that is not that much harmful for the thyroid. So that is what is
Yeah.
there in soya.
And
Each time we can't do like that. Na? The granules are not that good for boiling.
huh.
It takes a lot of time. So that is why we want to avoid soya product. Even the soya nuggets, the soya chunks, they are made they are made without boiling the soy granules. That is why we
No,
want to
ma'am.
avoid all this.
I'm talking about soya seeds, ma'am. Soya bean, जो
That
seeds आते हैं ना, soya
soya,
beans.
soya granules, the soya, just like the black
No,
gram,
no,
urad dal.
not granules. No, not granules, ma'am. I'm talking about the soyabean seeds which market में मिलते हैं, and then patient लेके they roast it and eat it raw, like मतलब वैसे शेंगदाने जैसा रहता है ना
That
वैसे.
is what. That is what.
Only
See,
the
they just like the urad dal, like all the other
right,
dals, it will be right. Yeah, that is what the brand. That is
yeah.
what I meant by granules. Huh? The soya seeds, the
Yeah, I
soya.
thought you were
Uh,
talking about the soya chunks और उनके जो granules थे वो.
soya chunks are also
Fine.
prepared by not boiling the soya seeds. So that is why we should not advise them also. That is what I am explaining. The soya chunks मार्केट में जो
Got
मिलते हैं वो कच्चा सोया से बन देते हैं. So that is why they are not boiling that to perfectly 100 degrees or more than 100 degrees. So that is why we should not advise them also take in a hormonal disturbance patient, like that. In a thyroid especially, thyroid equals a PCOD.
Okay. Also by dehusking ऊपर का जो छिलका रहता है that we remove and then we make a flour out of it because the goitrogen substance is in the seed coat. When we remove that seed coat, we can use it in the eating method or to make a flour.
For soya?
Is that?
Oh, okay. For soya, are you asking for soya?
Hello?
For soya seeds, are you asking for
Yes.
soya seeds?
Yeah.
Okay, so that process,
Yes.
yeah, okay, it may be taken, I don't know, because that process I'm not aware of. Huh? So it may be taken, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Madhurima, we will be winding up now.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Alka, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Diksha, ma'am. It was really nice session and it was very interactive session. Thank you, audience, for your active participation. And thank you about letting us know about the asanas, ma'am. About the Sukshma Vyayam, Stula Vyayam, and some specific asanas for PCOS and female health.